What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. As always, bring you incredible guests from all over the world. So sit back, relax, and tune in. My next guest is a speaker, a coach, an author, and what I'd like to consider is a pro-ageist. Please welcome Al Lyman. Al, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Deanna. It's a pleasure to be here. I've really been looking forward to our conversation for so many reasons. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, me too. I mean, we already started started running when we
jumped
onto the recording.
We sure did.
So we had to pump the brakes and make sure that everybody gets all the juicy goodness out of this conversation.
Yeah.
So you've never heard the term pro-ageist, and like when you joined me in the meeting, I said, well, your catchphrase or your phrase is you want to die healthy, and you started getting into what that meant. So how about we start off there and start telling the audience like what that means to you?
Well, thank you, Deanna. Let me see if I can give you a brief background as really what's led me to this point. As I sit here, I'm 63. When I was a kid, I didn't play sports. I wasn't athletic. I was always the last kid to get picked on the playground. And then as the years went on, I didn't do any exercise or anything fitness related. As I got into my teens, I got out of college into my early 20s, and I decided to start a running program just to try to get in shape. A lot of my colleagues, I just started a new job. A lot of my colleagues were running. They were going off on their lunch hour to go for jogs. So I figured I would start.
Yeah.
It was really hard, really, really tough, never having done anything athletic in my life before. As the years went on and I started to get sort of a handle on running and started to get into the running lifestyle a little bit. And at the same time, I was noticing how, I guess there was a lot of ill health in my circle. My parents, my grandparents both died relatively young. My grandfather spent the last 7 or 8 years of his life in a convalescent home, and he passed at 72.
Oh, that's terrible.
And he was very sick when he did. And in fact, both my parents were smokers. Sort of blue collar in terms of their background. But the point is I started to notice this ill health, and I was concerned about how it seemed some people were aging and just spent more time sick rather than healthy.
Yeah.
But one day I'm on a walk over to the gym where, what I would run and work out a little bit. And I was in my mid-20s. And I was walking with a friend, and he asked me, he said, Al, why do you run? He didn't enjoy running like a lot of people, don't really connect with runners or really understand why somebody would run. And at the time, I'd been thinking a lot about it and trying to juxtapose my fitness goals and racing and things like that with this idea of getting into a healthier lifestyle. So I thought about it, and our pace sort of slowed, and I stopped and I said, I run to square the curve.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he said, square the curve? Well, what does that mean? And I said, imagine you live your entire life in good health, free of disease, free of dysfunction, able to do whatever you want to do with whomever you want to do it with. And then one day, far off into the future, maybe at the age of 120, you go to sleep one night.
Yeah.
After having done something fun that day with the people that you want to be with, and you don't wake up the next, you die healthy.
Right.
I said that to him at 25, and he was like, that sounds crazy. That's really crazy. Deanna, every day since I made that decision, it was sort of a conscious decision in my own mind. Every day since then, I've thought about what it means to die healthy, which is to say, to live a life where, again, that idea of squaring the curve is this idea that we get this, our life is sort of that horizontal line. And then one day there's the vertical line, which is the day we die, i.e. the right angle, and juxtapose that against what we typically see in our society in this day and age, which is what I describe as a slow, gradual decline where many people die before their actual demise, be it cognitive, emotional, or functional, right? Where the last years of their life are spent more in suffering in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. So I had this vision that things could be very different. I wanted something different for my life. Now, looking back, my dad passed at at 64, 1 year older than I am now from brain cancer. And I talk a lot about him in my book. There's a picture of him at age 59 where he literally looks 80 years old. Yeah. And so I thought it was important to tell the story of my dad, because I think it's critical that we all accept first that the people of those generation, I think they did the best that they could, Deanna, given what they knew. They relied too much on the healthcare system, too much on their doctors. They didn't know the dangers of some, of their environments, or honestly, even of smoking, right? My dad was an amazing man. He just didn't know. And I think he did the best that he could. So I think it's important to let those people off the hook a little bit. But I also wanted to tell my dad's story because most people are, well, I won't say most, that's not true. Some people are, sort of, they just think it's about their family history or their DNA or their genes, right? They haven't fully wrapped their brain around the idea that choices matter. So I love placing the picture of me at 1 year. Well, actually, the picture I have of him at 59 means that I'm 4 years older than he was. Yeah. To at least represent the fact that, hey, I've had some good fortune. I've certainly, thereby the grace of God go I think there's some mystery involved in all of it. But I also think our choices matter in a really, really big way. And this is one of the messages that I want to share with other people. So that's really what it means to die healthy. This idea that, we need a little good fortune, that there's certainly a mystery to why some people get sick and other people don't. But all things being equal, our choices mentally, emotionally, psychologically, of course, what the food we put in our mouth, the exercise we get, the purpose or mission we have in life, when, something that we're compelled to do when we get up in the morning, all of these things matter in creating the best opportunity, giving ourselves a chance to die healthy.
Yeah, no, I love this. I personally have been raised around people that believe in health and fitness and having that mindset of being active and, taking an active role in your health and wellness, right? My grandparents, my mom, they're not very big into the healthcare system, big into supplementation. Really, my grandfather would not take anything he had high blood pressure. He wouldn't take it from the doctor. He would not take any medication. Unfortunately, ended up having a couple strokes, but that was like later into his 80s. So I think that what your message is very important, and it's not very common. And I like, before we start recording, we live in a society where we have to accept that as we get older, we decline. And I think your message is one of, hey, we don't have to adopt that label, right? Because that is a label that people are taking.
It really is absolutely a label.
You look fantastic. I'm sure you probably can run circles around a lot of 20-year-olds that are out there. I could guarantee it. Yeah. And it's like that. So when you are talking about your message or working with people, because you're a coach, do you think that it starts with we talk a lot about mindset, and it really is a real thing. Do you think that's where it starts for people to change that perspective?
It's funny you should ask that question. Have you and I talked about this coaching program that I just launched?
No.
We haven't, right? So let me really quickly describe this program because it really directly answers your question. Mm-hmm. So I recently launched a 12-week program that I call Beat Aging Transformation. The word BEAT is an acronym for belief, encouragement, accountability, and taking action. Ooh. And there are 5 pillars in this program. The first is mindset. The second is movement. The third is food. The fourth is rejuvenation. And the fifth is reflection. So yes, 100%, Deanna. It starts with belief. And in my book, when I wrote, I knew I needed to do a couple of things if I was going to reach people. One was to be transparent, to be fully honest and show all my warts and my own struggles. And I've had many. The second thing I knew I needed to be was to be inspirational. So there are a lot of quotes. There's a lot of, information that I think really should inspire, and it has inspired people. And the third thing is to address this idea that our belief systems, right? How we think when nobody's watching or really listening, the conversations that go on in our mind that really tell us or empower us, or, by the same token, on the flip side, rob us of the power to change our lives, to evolve. And I acknowledge that, I often say, resistance to change might be the most powerful force in the universe, right? It's so hard to change, but it starts with, a tiny little idea, a vision that maybe tomorrow can be better. Maybe tomorrow I can be better. Maybe, just maybe, I have more power than I think. And if I can be made in some way, shape, or form to see that, to start to believe that, then that's going to dictate what kinds of actions I take, because I can give people advice from here to the moon and back about foods, about exercise, about all of it. If they don't believe that it matters, they won't engage. So it starts with belief. Yes.
Yeah. So powerful. And I know that's a journey that's different for everyone. What is there a common thread among people that you work with, or that you find with creating this new coaching program that you have for them, that prevents that they have that the common thread of a hump that they have to get over with their belief system? Because I think that there's got to be something that's common amongst people that are not there yet.
Well, I think across the board, whether we're talking about belief systems, whether we're talking about movement, whether we're talking about food choices, any of it, right? Okay. I think it starts with, and I address this in the epilogue of the book. It starts with the question I ask, which is, what is your why?
Yeah. Okay.
What's the reason? What is the thing that's driving you, right? And I talk about this at length, and I actually share the story of a German Christmas commercial. I'm not sure if you've ever seen it, but it's an absolutely amazing 90 seconds of video where this very old man starts to go into his garage early in the morning, and he drags this kettlebell out into the middle of the floor. Have you ever seen it?
I don't know.
And starts to try to lift it. And for the first 30 to 40 seconds, you see him struggling every day. And at the end of the commercial, you realize that his whole struggle was about, on Christmas morning, lifting his granddaughter so that she could put a star that he gifted to her at the top of the tree. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
So what we watched is the evolution of this man's struggle, because his why, his desire to lift his granddaughter, and of course her face radiated, and her mom stood there and was, tears rolling down her face. So I think it starts with why, right? And then I think the second challenge that everybody has, and I talk about this in the book, is, well, really there's two facets to it. One is, we start out with too big of a chunk, right? We try to make too much of a change, whether it's starting with exercise, whether it's completely flip-flopping our belief system and trying to completely adopt something which is vastly different from how we may have thought before. If we bite off too much too soon, then the odds of not being able to be consistent and continue, I think, is reduced. So what I suggest is that we make a change that is literally so small it's almost imperceptible as a change. Now, that may sound silly to you because you're a mover and shaker, but really, if you can do something that is just a little bit different and better and more positive and more affirming and more empowering, just the tiniest little thing, but you repeat that, right, every day, then you begin to gain some momentum, and you begin to encourage yourself, and you see some of those effects. And I think the other thing is, and this is certainly true in exercise and a variety of other factors, I think it's hard for people to be beginners. I think it's hard for us to engage in things that we don't feel totally competent in, right? We don't like to suck at anything. So regardless of what that might be, whether it's our mindset, whether it's some kind of activity related to fitness, whatever it may be, I think we all struggle with, being beginners. So So I mean, I really encourage my readers of the book to, be willing to be a beginner here, own this, even if you have to be, do it in your private space and give yourself some time to gain a little momentum and just accept. Because here's the thing, Deanna, this is what I love about kids. They don't care. Right. Like a kid will jump on a skateboard, he'll fall off, he'll jump on, he'll fall off, he'll jump on, he'll fall off. And he's like, what? They're just present. Right. Yeah. They're completely mindful of where they are. They don't worry about being judged. They don't worry about judging themselves. They're just trying something new. And this is that kind of youthful approach that I think we all can apply in every phase of our life. It doesn't matter how old we are.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like that kind of that being present and kind of adopting that, or, going back to it, right? Since we are like that when we're kids, or trying to teach yourself to go back to it and have that same, like that childlike mentality really is kind of like the fountain of youth in a lot of ways,
I think it is. And yeah. And I think what's interesting is I personally hate the phrase, hate's a strong word, but I hate the phrase anti-aging. It's a flip-flop of pro-ageist. It's a very different way to look at it. But I don't like the way that that youthfulness is glorified in our society in, to me, all of the wrong ways, right? Yes. But certainly this is an example of, I think we all need to hold on to the things about our childhood, the positive things, our willingness to just play, our willingness to look at any activity and try to figure out a more youthful, for lack of a better word, approach to it that frees us to explore.
Yeah, no, I agree. I love that. I agree with the anti-aging, and I think that we do glorify youth. I personally have loved getting older, and I don't come from like a family. The women in my family have always lied about their age. So for me, like that's what I was raised around. And I'm like, I didn't really like that. I thought that was weird. And so as I have gotten older, I've really loved getting older. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think that actually you have more of abundance of wisdom and abundance of other things that you can make a choice on that can positively impact your life that you didn't know when you were in your youth. And I think that, like, I know the anti-aging term, I get that, but I really like the pro-aging term. I really like it. Like, we need to have more of a society that is about being pro-aging and the positive ways of pro-aging and what that means, instead of taking all these things from the pharmaceutical companies. What is out there that you can take that is natural and that will keep you in this positive, healthy state in your life. So I get it. I totally agree with you. Did you share with us the name of your book? I don't know if you told us the name of your book.
No, actually, it's funny that I have a copy of it right here.
Let's see.
And it's large, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of. It's a very big book.
It's 680 pages with 30 pages of scientific references. So it's a fairly large book, and it didn't start out that large, Deanna. But the reality is that to really look at positive aging, to look at aging in the best way that we can, there's really two parallel ways to think about it. The first way is that it's super simple, and it really is. If you just eat real food and you get a little bit of exercise, and you enhance your sleep environment and get 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. You try to reduce negative stress, right? And just do those things. You're like 80% of the way there.
Yeah.
The other way to view it, which is something I have thought about my entire life, is that there's many pieces to the aging puzzle. And in fact, you can see the cover here is sort of the shape of a human head, but there's all of these pieces. Right. So there's strength, mindset, movement, sleep, age beliefs, connection, stress, food, and of course, DNA. So when I started to write, I wanted to address a little bit with all of these pieces to the puzzle, because I think one trap that people can fall into that I've seen over the course of my life is I think it's human nature for people. Let's say, I'll just use a hypothetical example. Let's say there's a 60-year-old woman who, for one reason or another, has been going to yoga classes all of her life, and she really loves yoga. And so she goes to yoga 4 to 5 times a week, and she really feels like this yoga is her fountain of youth.
Yeah.
She enjoys it for all of the reasons that people love yoga. But let's say at the same time that she's attending yoga, she's not doing any strength training.
Yeah. That's not
and
good.
she may not even be eating necessarily very well. So even though the yoga is a very positive piece, to the entire puzzle, the inevitable is that she will lose muscle mass if she's not engaging her muscle, something we know as in clinical terms as sarcopenia. And that muscle wasting will eventually cause more stress to her joints and limit her ability. Yeah, exactly. And all of these other factors, right? Certainly when we look at osteoporosis as one example, when you have strong muscles that put tension into ligaments, which attach to bones, the bones become stronger. Of course, we need to load against gravity in activities that really, continue to strengthen the bones. So that particular person, I think in one respect, she feels really good about this, but there are missing pieces.
Yeah.
And I think across the board, when we look at all of these factors, physiological, psychological, and emotional, right? They all matter just a little bit. So my hope in the book was to address all of these topics a little bit. So I talk about dental health, which is a huge factor with regard to chronic inflammation. I mean, you can do strength training and you can go to yoga and you can eat pretty well. But if you have serious periodontal disease, then that level of inflammation in your mouth is likely to become systemic. And we know that there's a direct correlation between chronic inflammation, systemic inflammation, and disease risk. So all of these things need to be addressed to some degree. It's like you don't want to get to the point where you go, if only I knew that, but I didn't know it. And that's why the book is this big.
No, I love it. I just want to touch on your coaching really quick. What is your ideal client, or what kind of people come to you to hire you as a coach?
There are people that at a fundamental level are positive and optimistic and hopeful and ideally lifelong learners.
Yeah.
We have to, if some part of us is going to change, Deanna, then some part of us has to go away.
Yeah.
In order for us to learn, especially at my age, and perhaps at your ages too, but I'll tell you, as the years go on, people get more rooted in, these beliefs. But in order for us to change and grow and evolve and improve, and also look toward the future with hope, then, which is the most important thing, we have to be hopeful. If we lose hope, nothing else matters.
Yeah.
But in order for those things to happen, there has to be some part of us that's willing to open ourselves up and to willingly, and I talk about this in the book, work to strike the balance between two opposing forces. One force is self-acceptance. One force is self-improvement.
Yeah.
I love the way author Mark Manson, I don't know if you're familiar with his books, he's an incredible modern day philosopher and has written some wonderful books, but I love the way he talks about these opposing forces, right? Because if we're too much about self-acceptance, we're not really going to ever engage ourselves in learning and trying to change and trying to get better, right? And if we're so much about self-improvement, then we're just kind of like an ass to be around. Nobody wants to be around us because, we're never really just, being present and just going with the flow. Because I think the message in my book over and over again is it's not about perfection. It's not about, eating perfectly 24/7, 365. It's really just trying to make better choices and honoring your health, right? I think of self-discipline as like the most sincerest form of self-love. Yeah. It's really about accepting yourself and going, a little bit of discipline, if I can make a little bit of improvement, that's the best way that I can give myself a hug.
I love it. Where can people find you, connect with you, you purchase your book and learn more?
Well, the book, Age Well and Feel Great, is available on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm super proud. I launched the book in November, on November 17th. It was actually my 63rd birthday, kind of like an important big day.
Yeah.
And since then, I think I've got around 120 reviews, and they're all 5 stars. So it's pretty amazing. And the reviews are honestly incredible. They're very heartwarming and very humbling to read. So that can be found on Amazon. It also, you can buy it directly from me, on one of 2 websites. The first is theallyman.com. On that site, you'll read a little bit about some of the speaking that I'm doing and hope to do, and workshops, and of course, buy the book there. My other website is Pursuit Athletic Performance. That is a company that I started about 12 years ago with a sports physician. And we worked together in clinic. It was essentially a gait analysis lab. I was working with injured athletes from all different sports and all different age groups. It was an incredible experience to work in clinic and try to help people overcome chronic injuries. So on that website, I have a half a dozen courses that reflect the work I do or that I did in clinic. So they're really about basic and fundamental movement skills, body weight strength programs, things of that nature that are very much movement oriented. And of course, I'm on Instagram, the Al Lyman. I'm on Twitter, Coach Al, Facebook. I mean, I'm on all of the social media, just like you, of course. And just like you, I'm a company of one. Which I wish I could say I had a staff of 25, but
we're going to get there eventually.
I don't know if we will, but it would be nice. I'm very close to hiring a virtual assistant, actually. I think it'll be helpful for me just in terms of, more prospecting and giving myself more opportunities to be able to get out there and speak.
Sure.
And try to change the world and just share what I've learned. Honestly, that's really all this is about. Is I've made all the mistakes. Or at least many of them. And so I like to save people the trouble of making the same mistakes.
I love it. You guys, I'm going to put those links in the show notes. So if you connected with Al's message or are interested in purchasing the book, go click his links, go check him out, go follow him on social. If you want to connect with him as a coach, do not hesitate to send him a message. I'm sure he'd love to have a conversation with you to see if it's a good fit. Al, this is the part of the show where I like to ask for last words of wisdom or advice. What would you like to leave with us today?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Deanna, for having me on. I've really enjoyed the opportunity to share a little bit. I would simply say, as a last bit of, wisdom, when each of us thinks about what our why is for, perhaps looking for positive change in our life, I would simply ask everybody to remember that without good health, nothing else in life matters nearly as much.
Yeah.
In the book, I briefly mentioned Steve Jobs having passed at 56 with $7 billion of net worth.
Yeah.
And he's often been known for saying that he could pay someone to do everything for him, but he couldn't pay someone to be sick for him. That was pancreatic cancer that took his life. No matter how much money we have in the bank, no matter our long list of friends and associates and colleagues, no matter any of those things, without good health, they just don't matter as much. And what is an ironic and often unfortunate twist to the story is that for all of us that are, sitting here right now, for me and for perhaps for your listeners, we can all think of all of those people in our lives that we really love and care about, and they care about us. And the thing that we want most in life to be able to do is to enhance their lives, to make their lives better, to share something with them. But in what is an unfortunate and ironic twist, when we become sick later in life, we end up becoming a burden to the people that we least want to burden.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And that's really sad and unfortunate. We see it everywhere. So, without good health, nothing else matters, which simply means you have to pay yourself first. You have to get to the point where you can figure out the best strategy for you to fit these different pieces of the puzzle into your life in a smart, conservative, long-term approach that works for you. And there's no one size fits all for any of this stuff, food or anything else.
Yeah.
It's about finding what works best for us. But none of us ever wants to get to the point where we look back and go, what if, right? We don't want to get there. And trust me, as the years go on, they go faster and faster. So anyway, I hope that helps.
Yes. With that note, boom, you're welcome. And thank you very much for being an incredible guest. So we really appreciate your message. I know I personally appreciate it and resonate with it deeply. So I love it. And I can't wait to share this with everybody. So those of you that are listening, do not hesitate to reach out to Al and purchase that book. So thank you.
Thank
Al,
you
for everything.
Thank you very much.
You guys, this is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. As always, don't forget to subscribe, follow, rate, review, comment, share, all those good things. And I'll be back soon. More dynamic guests.